what is going on in Singapore in terms of taxes and in terms of grants, right? And of course there are many information, but this talk we want to focus it in startups and SMEs, because there's also many things happening on a multinational level, but we want to do it very practical and to the point, so you can know if you, as a startup, as an SME, you really can get access to all what is happening here in Singapore. Okay, so we're gonna start, Teresa and myself as Monx. For those one who doesn't know about Monx, we are an accounting firm, a global accounting firm with offices here in Singapore, but also in other places around Asia and Europe. And we try to give this global expertise. So we would like, first of all, to explain what we think Singapore has best compared to other jurisdictions. And then we will go into detail. Teresa will introduce about the tax incentives, and Gerald will go into the grants, and then we will open to Q&As, okay? So just a brief introduction. Teresa is our general manager here in Singapore, and I'm more on the BD, global BD side of things and Southeast Asia. Okay, so many things are new in Singapore, but those are some of the key features, the main things that are really affecting SMEs and startups, right? So what the Singapore government wants. The Singapore government wants Singapore to be the next innovation hub. Of course, it's already an innovation hub, right? But the Singapore government wants to bring it to the next level. How? So we would say there are four main things that is happening. First thing, of course, Singapore has always been like the door to Southeast Asia, right? To this middle class that is growing very fast. It's gonna be like this, but there's gonna be a push on how to help SMEs and startups to expand even more to international markets. So this is the first. Second one is about innovation and digital capabilities. We will see it later on, but basically Singapore wants to be the reference for that. There is the artificial intelligence strategy, fintech, many things happening on the innovation side of things. Third thing, it's about green sustainability. This is the third pillar. And the fourth pillar, very, very important, talent, right? Because I don't know what is your experience, but there is a lack of talent, like globally. It's not only about Singapore, it's global, the lack of good talent. So what the Singapore government is doing is attracting this global talent into Singapore. So then they can train the local, they can give additional skills to the local, because in the local market there is a very talented workforce. I mean, this is a reality, right? But many things are happening, you need to be updated. So the Singapore government wants to attract these brains and then train the local people to become the next tech talent of the future, right? And we're gonna see what is the reality and the grants on this side. Okay, taxes. I will just briefly introduce about taxes, especially about something that sometimes is taken for granted, and it's very important to understand. So the taxes in Singapore, as you know, is 17%, right? But then, like, the effective tax rate is much lower. Why? Because every company in Singapore, they will get for granted the partial tax exemption, which means that for the first 10,000 net income, Singapore dollar, you get a 75% exemption, and for the next 190,000, you get a 50% exemption. What does it mean in real? So in real, your tax rate is gonna be around 9%. Then, additionally, you may be able to get the startup tax exemption. This is only for some companies that can meet some specific criteria, which is basically that you are resident in Singapore. What does it mean? So it basically means that your management, like the decision making, is taken in Singapore, to make it simple, right? Okay, so now I leave Teresa to explain about the Singapore budget and like the main highlights. We're going to do snapshots so you have a general idea, and then we want to do it very interactive, and we can do Q&A after the talk.
Hi everyone, good morning.
Morning.
So for this year's 2024 budget, I'm just going to point out some highlights, not going to go into too much details as it was just announced in February. So the details, the requirements will come later on, about I think third or third quarter. So first thing, the tax rate, corporate tax rate, 17%. There's no change. But they're creating more rebates and grants for this year, 2024. So we still have a whole 2024 ahead of us, and we can start get ready for this first 50% rebate for the tax payable for this year. So you will see it in 2025, and also cash grant for 2,000 Singapore dollar for eligible companies if you're employing at least one local employee for this year, 2024. So it encourages company to employ more local staff, and of course they will cap at 40,000. It's not going to go unlimited, which I wish to. And so GST, we already know this year changed from 8% to 9%, and there's no talk about going to 10% yet. So we know we can breathe a little for this year. There will not be additional increase for the upcoming. So. And also, and more coming soon, the government will have more deduction on renovation or refurbishment. So if they're expanding the scope, more longer time period, for example, and also refundable investment credit. So if your expenditure qualifies it, 50% of that can offset against your tax payable. And the next one, tax incentive schemes, they are also extending it to 2029, and they will revisit with a revision by 2025. And also they are doing more specific scheme, for example, for shipping company. If they qualify the net tonnage of ships that are in Singapore, and also aircraft listing, development, expansion, and intellectual property development incentive. So there are more specific incentive coming up, and of course, they will give out more detail as they come along in the second and the third quarter of this year. So everybody, as we get more information, of course, we will share it, again. But yeah, so this is a quick highlights of Singapore.
Yeah, so I can do that if you want. Yeah, so as Teresa was mentioning, like this is those other streams are still not in force. This is going to come in quarter 3 and quarter 4, and this will depend on each agency. As you know, there's mainly 2, EDB and Enterprise Singapore, so it's going to come on next quarters. Okay, so on personal income tax, there is also a rebate of 50% of tax payable, but it's capped at 2,000 Singapore dollars, so it's more for medium wage workers. And there's also this is on an individual level and also on a corporate level. There is a humanitarian assistance tax deduction scheme. So there's going to be 100% tax deduction for cash donations for year of assessment 2025. So this is something that it's going to be coming in the future, but it's good to know where we are. And yeah, so it's basically it. I won't make it longer. I will give the word to Gerald. So you can, I'll leave you the power.
First of all, I'm very happy to see everyone on this very sunny Wednesday morning. Thanks for coming for this event. Alright, so my main purpose today is to familiarize everyone with the top grants in Singapore in 2024. And we've kind of shortlisted all these different initiatives and grants based on our past experience in helping companies and kind of sensing a trend of where companies tend to incline towards when it comes to projects that they want to go for grant support for. So a quick self-introduction. I'm Gerald. I'm the founder of Readiness Consultancy. We are a small team of 10 today spanning Singapore and Hong Kong. And what we do is that we specialize in helping companies to secure grant financing. So the types of grants that we can secure range from different types like R&D grants, overseas expansion grants, automation grants, hiring grants, etc. Right, so back to myself, I came from the B2B tech world. So I was mainly doing commercial sales for fintech companies, shipping tech companies, a bit of product management for media companies, just to get my feet wet in product management. And then I came up to do RIC, after my stint as an employee. Currently, I'm also a father of two very energetic young boys, 3-year-old and 5-year-old. So, besides the business and besides my wife is my boys. That's how I spend my life. Right. And yeah, so back to RIC, we are also certified consultants recognized by Enterprise Singapore. Enterprise Singapore is the main agency in Singapore in charge of SME development. And when we say we are certified, it means that we are certified to be consultants for grant supportable projects. And of course, there's a bit of industry recognition that we have gotten recently on the right side, but I think it's a bit too small. So yeah, basically just the key idea is that we do have quite a few industry recognitions, quite fortunately, in the past few months. Okay, so just a summary of the top initiatives that SMEs in Singapore like to pursue to drive business growth. It's not comprehensive, so you may have other initiatives in mind, but this is what we observe as a general observation. Right, the first one is to adopt new technologies to improve processes, productivity, to automate production lines, etc. So the general theme here is that adopt technologies to improve operations and increase productivity. You can see this in professional services firm where using Gen AI, large language models kind of technology to kind of automate customer service, automate marketing automation, and of course there's also the scenario applied to manufacturing companies where they're using technologies to automate their production line. Right. Also logistics firms using technology to set up like fully autonomous warehouses. So these are some of the wonderful examples we have seen, and we are actually quite honored to be the ones to secure the grants for these companies to actualize their plans. Right. The next one is innovation. Okay, this is especially critical for companies which are kind of stuck in the rut. For many years they've been like middleman, distributor business. There's no productization of their service, so it's still exchanging time for money. So a lot of them they want to develop a proprietary technology product that they can use to productize the service and then to scale globally. Right? So think of like Uber. I won't overuse the Uber example, but essentially productizing everything in a tech platform, creating some innovation in it, and then scale it as a product. Right? Third one is to expand overseas. Very straightforward. So Singapore is a very small market. The government has been trying to push the SMEs to expand. And this is one of the key things at the top of business owners' mind. How do I expand overseas to target new markets? Right. Fourth one is to engage external consultants, meaning bringing in external perspectives and expertise to help actualize new growth opportunities and strategies. Because a lot of time as SMEs, especially as founders, right? Can I have a raise of just a show of hands who are like founders, managing their own companies here? All right. So close to founders, even executive functions, right? We are in decision-making kind of position. You feel a bit lonely sometimes, right? Like, and sometimes you need external expertise and opinions of how other successful firms have done it. Because if you just consult within your company, there's a lack of objectivity, and you don't really know what you don't know. Right. So the companies we see also like to engage, also want a chance to engage external consultants to come in and work on their business strategy, their financial strategy, etc. but of course not at the price tag of like the big four. Those kind, it's a bit hard for SMEs to make big four successful. But the good news is that there are grants that can support SMEs to engage boutique consultancy, which I will touch on later. Right, and lastly is to hire strategic talents to actualize all of the plans above. Because as with your current resources now, everyone is firefighting day to day. No extra hands to kickstart any new initiatives. So naturally, companies will want to hire qualified talents to champion and to lead such growth initiating projects. So these are the top few initiatives that we see that business owners want to use to drive business growth. So just a quick Q&A. Has anyone in their companies tapped on any kind of government funding before to execute all these things? And I'm very happy to see that because, okay, yeah, you have. Thank you. May I just ask which kind of initiative was that? PIC, is it? That was a few years ago, right? Okay, so PIC, that was the boom time for grants, but also subject to a lot of abuse. Yeah, a lot of vendors, when they kind of inflated their quotes and all these things. But by nature, it's a good grant to encourage R&D, to encourage automation. Right. Today, it's really the landscape has shifted away from PIC. PIC was, I would say, a bit unregulated. The regulation in terms of dispersing the funds and analyzing the grant applications were not so regulated. Today, it's a lot more regulated, but the grant money is still there, so that's the good news. And by the way, PIC is over, right? Now it's been replaced by many other schemes. Second question, how many are looking to embark on the above anytime soon? All right, thanks, gentlemen. Thank you. Okay, so at least I know there's some fit in what I'm going to share with the friends. Okay, so yeah, good news. There are grants that can fund these initiatives, and for the rest of my presentation, I will be going through the grants in quite some level of detail. But I will kind of gauge the audience and see if anyone's like closing off, and then I'll just move on to the next one because it's quite a lot of information, right? So I considered doing it like the Steve Jobs style, just picture and talk. But I was thinking maybe later we'll share the deck, right? So when I'm not there, you want to know more info from looking at the deck. So I've made it like a format where all the info is there. You just review the deck to recap it, right? Okay, first up, hiring grants. I think this is the most relevant to everyone. So essentially, these are a suite of grants in Singapore that support the salaries of new Singaporean hires or redeployed or reskilled Singapore hires. And so what the government is trying to do here is that it's saying that, okay, if a company wants to hire a Singaporean, I'll support you in creating this new job or this new role by funding up to 6 months of salary at about 70 to 90%, depending on the age group. Okay. And the catch here is that for new staff, the new hire has to be Singaporean or PR, that's for sure. Right? And then must have graduated for more than 2 years from their last academic qualification. And they should show sort of a career conversion. That means maybe previously they were from the logistics sector, and then now they're trying to come here and do digital sales. Right? So sort of a career conversion. Right? And they cannot be ex-employees of your company or related to the shareholders of your company. Right? So I can see a lot of people maybe already having some ideas of how to tap on this grant. Another piece of good news, you can use this grant for existing staff as well. So for staff which you have employed in your company for more than 1 year, who are Singaporean citizens or PR, if you're thinking of redeploying them into new job roles, because perhaps certain technologies have kind of going to make their current job role obsolete, right? Then the government can support by providing grant support for about 3 to 6 months of salary in their new redeployed job roles. And the support level is the same. It's around 70% for candidates below 4 years old and 90% for candidates above 4 years old. Okay. And additional criteria for the existing staff program is that they must have at least been 1 year employed, and their existing role must be facing some sort of obsolescence. Right. So with Gen AI, coming in huge waves, there are actually quite a lot of roles facing endangerment. But the good thing is that the Singapore government actually has mapped out a lot of strategies on how they can help companies to redeploy and reskill this stuff into new roles that work together with Gen AI. Okay, so funding levels, I've kind of talked about it. Yeah, so basically it's 70%, 90%, and then there are specific caps. So for for workers below 40 years old, the grant is capped at 5K per month, grant, right? And then for above 40 years old, it's 7.5K per month. So if for some very enterprising minds, you'll kind of do a back calculation on what's the optimal salary to declare, right? So I'll make the job easy for you. So it's actually 5K, right, is 70%. So you just do a back calculate to calculate 100%. That's the so-called ideal salary to declare. But of course, it's not, declare the salary based on the value you see in the staff, based on what you think is a fair compensation, not because of the price. Okay, process and timeline, quite straightforward. So prepare the application, apply, evaluation usually takes 1 or 2 weeks. And it's a grant administered by close to 100 different program partners who each have their specific expertise in the type of role you're trying to get the staff employed into. Right? So we help that you need to select the right program partner and then to apply the grant through the program partner. So then the execution of the grant, which means to hire, would be for 6 months. So you have to keep the staff employed for 6 months. Right? And then prepare and submit the claims at the end of 6 months, and the claims evaluation and reimbursement will come in within 3 months. Right? And so what's required during claims would be on-the-job training blueprint, right? Because naturally, if there's a career conversion, your company needs to train the staff in the new roles, right? So they're required to see some sort of OJT blueprint. They will need to see pay slips and CPF statements to show that your company has paid out salaries rightfully to the staff. Right, so just a quick point here. A lot of clients also ask us, what if the staff leaves within the 6 months? Right. So if it's on good faith basis, that means maybe they found a better opportunity, or maybe they just don't fit the job. It's fine. You can still submit claims. You can still get salary support for the months in which they were in your company. Right. So any quick questions on this grant? Okay,
does it apply to any company, even to embassies?
Okay, it has to be Singapore registered. So embassy is possible as long as you're hiring Singaporeans.
No, hiring Singapore.
Yeah, and registered in Singapore. So there's an entity right in Singapore. Yeah, I believe it's qualifiable. We haven't handled a case where we helped an embassy to claim this, but according to the guidelines, as long as it's a registered entity, yes. Right.
So the support timeline is 6 months?
Yep. Up to 6 months. So some schemes, I mentioned there are 100 different program partners, right? So some particular job roles support only up to 3 months. A few rare ones can support up to 9, but the average we see is around 6. Right. So I'll move on to the next grant here. So away from hiring, let's go on to the next one, which is product development. All right. So this syncs in with what I mentioned just now about developing new technological products. So this grant supports companies to develop new tech offerings that they plan to commercialize. The keyword here is commercialize. That means you must develop something new to sell for revenues. Right. So the grant here is Enterprise Development Grant, administered by ESG. And the key things to note, I won't go through all the content, but key things to note is your company must be a business entity that's reporting profit and loss and everything. There's financial statements. So likely embassy may not qualify for this. Yeah. But all the operating business entities could consider this. There must be 30% local shareholding, traced to individual level. That means if you look at your APRA, your BISFILE, your registration document, right, all your shareholders, at least 30% of them must be Singaporeans, meaning citizen or PR, and they must make up more than 30% of your shareholding. And it shouldn't be the first product of the company, meaning this one doesn't support startups. Right? But it can support startups which already have their first product, already earning money from the first product, and then doing a second product. Right? So it can support the development of the second product and onwards. Of course, it has to be commercialized. That means you can't just develop it and sit it on the shelf or just to use it internally for your own productivity. You need to sell that product. Okay, so what the supportable costs would be salaries of your tech development staff. So any new staff that you hire, like software engineers, hardware engineers, product managers, the salaries could be supported. It could also include outsourced development work. For example, prototype manufacturing. I see a lot of sports startups being based here. So manufacturing of innovative prototypes can also be funded. Hardware and software design can be funded. Testing and certification of your new products by external agencies can be funded. Third-party tools for development, like for example, computer-aided design software, right? All those can be funded as well. Right? Funding level, up to 50% of the total cost, and there's no quantum cap to how much the grant agency can fund. How much they fund will depend on a few factors like the size of the company, the revenue traction, the potential of the market that they see, as well as industry benchmarks. So this is a term that the grant agencies always like to use. when they give a lower than expected support. They'll say that they are benchmarking it to industry benchmarks, which means based on their own internal grant awards history, what have they awarded traditionally to a firm of a similar size. So many factors. Okay, process and timeline, quite straightforward, just that this grant is it's quite a lot more complex than the previous hiring one. So you're expecting a bit of a longer wait time for the evaluation, between 1 to 3 months. And then for the claims, also a bit of a longer wait time, between 1 to 2 months. Okay, and what's required for the claims would be essentially to show the grant agency what you have developed as per the grant proposal, and also some deliverables relevant to the cost items. What I mean by this is that, for example, if you are getting an external agency to do some testing on your product to make sure it's working soundly and it's safe, then you need the testing cert to present to the grant agency to say that yes, I've done this item, check off. And of course, you need evidence of expenses like your bank statements, invoices from the vendors, salary slips to show that you paid your tech development stuff. Okay, yeah, so essentially this grant aims to drive the benefit of enabling companies to unlock new revenue streams and also to revolutionize the business model. Remember I gave a previous example about some companies, they are just middleman business model. There's no like proprietary tech product. So if the market dries up or if they get cut out as the middleman, then the business dies. So it's actually a good grant for a business like that to transit to a new business model where you have your own proprietary product. All right, and yeah, it's also an opportunity for global scaling. So with a tech product, you can scale globally more easily. Okay, so just a few success cases that RIC has helped before, quite recently. We have helped an offshore engineering firm of more than 30 years develop a substation technology for their offshore solar wind farm, solar energy farm, not solar, so just solar. So basically this technology is dubbed Asia first, and what the substation does is that it relays the energy generated from the offshore solar farm back to the land grid. So, and they do it in very effective manner by doing the right transformations of the electricity. Right, so with this, we got them about 300K grant, Sing dollars, to develop this substation technology. It was about 50 to 70% support. And why is this a range, right? It's because each of these cost categories you see may be supported at different levels. So that adds the complexity of the grant. It's not like every cost and then the grant usually just slaps a 50% support. It's actually to different support levels. Yeah, and what was supported in that particular case were salaries and third-party software for underwater remote monitoring of the installations, as well as some services like marine survey, seabed modeling of the substation technology. Okay, so yeah, not all your technology has to be so like in the solar space or renewable space or in the deep tech space. Sometimes developing a technology platform that's innovative can also be funded. So I'll go on to the second success case recently. So we helped a leading fully digital telco firm to develop a first of its kind platform to enable telco operators to launch a telco service in a new country within just a matter of days. So if you think of it, if Singtel has it back in the days when it's trying to launch in Singapore, they can essentially achieve what they want to achieve within a few years in just a few days. Right. And yeah, for this, the grant was above 7 million Sing dollars. It was quite a big one. There was around 60% support to hire more than 70 new tech headcounts to develop this platform. Okay, so product development. I've got 3 other grants to go through. Is it too long? It's okay, everyone? Okay. Question?
For the support or invoices that happen, do they have to be local? I mean, for example, if I want to hire a developer or hardware, to buy something, does it have to be both in Singapore?
Okay,
or can I buy from overseas as well?
Yes, you can buy from overseas, but for more strategic costs like hiring, they would prefer to fund locals. Yeah, but if you can't fund, like for example, for other costs like maybe certain prototype manufacturing, like Singapore, you can't really find any affordable solutions to manufacture prototypes, so those you can outsource. During the grant application, you need to provide justifications as to why you're looking at an outsourced service provider instead of in-house. Instead of in Singapore, which is a very easy way to justify. Because outsource is simply overseas is simply cheaper in terms of selling costs. Any other questions? Just a few more seconds.
In terms of the reimbursement, does it come in tranches or is it usually like a project base that's at the end?
Yeah, good question. So usually it's a majority of it will come only at the end. So meaning companies must have enough cash flow or working capital to fund the project. There are some cases where the government may give a cash advancement at the start. It's usually around 20% of the grant amount. And then there could be interim claims as well, up to 50% of the grant amount. Right? But the cash advancement and interim claims are very subjective. It depends on your offer letter, whether the grant officer wants to give it or not. So you had a question? Okay, I'll go on to the next one. All right, so this is for overseas expansion. Right, so some clients, after they develop their first product, then they come to us again to say, okay, I want to scale globally. Now, how can you help? So we will suggest this grant to them. Market Readiness Assistance is a grant to help companies to expand to overseas sales market. Okay, very important keyword, sales. That means you actually need to earn revenues from that overseas market, and it's not just to set up like an overseas call center. Yeah. Okay, so the eligibility is about the same as the previous one. You need to have 30% local shareholding. There needs to be you need to be an SME. This one has a special criteria. You need to be SME, meaning small medium enterprise, meaning you can't be too large. Right? And how they define SME is that your overall group revenue must be less than 100 million Sing dollars. Right? And of course, there's another criteria which is that your overall global headcount should be less than 200 staff. All right? And the third criteria is that you must be expanding to a new market. It can't be a market that you already have your feet and hands and legs, everything in. It should be a market that you have not earned more than 100k Sing dollars of sales from in any of the past 2 years. So as long as it's a fresh market, you're good. Okay. So the supportable cost includes market promotion, and it's capped at 20k grant, right? And includes costs for you to exhibit at overseas trade shows, and also costs to engage overseas PR agencies to do PR and marketing work. Secondly, it supports company setup costs, so costs relating to you setting up a legal entity overseas, as well as filing for IP protection, especially for trademarks, and drafting certain strategic contracts like JV contracts or franchisor contracts, depending on the mode of expansion, how do you want to go overseas. And lastly, it can also fund tax advisory. So Monx, I think, there's something that, actually there's quite a lot of grants that, services that Monx provide could be funded, and I think we can have a deeper discussion in this setting. If you see any overlaps in the big things. All right, and lastly, is BD. So they also fund overseas business development stuff, right? And the cap is a 50k grant per country. So all these caps are per country, by the way. So you can actually replicate this in multiple countries, and you get a fresh cap for each country, which is how some of our clients are kind of hacking this grant. Okay, so for BD, right, it funds you to hire a overseas business development staff, and it can fund for up to 12 months of salary. Salary support differs if it's a foreign hire, meaning the staff is not a Singapore citizen. It's at 30% support, 30. Right? If it's a Singaporean citizen posted over, then it's 50% support. Okay. In addition to hiring a staff, you can also choose to do BD in other ways. For example, engaging external BD consultancy agencies, or engaging external business matching agencies. So they all share the same cap at 50k. Okay, so funding levels is at 50% of the cost, which means if you want to maximize the grant, then basically everything times 2 is your project cost, overall project cost. Right? Okay, and then there's a 100k grant cap per new country split into these 3 categories. Process to apply slightly simpler than the new product development. So there's a slightly short evaluation. Usually takes a bit shorter, 1 to 2 months. I put 3 as worst case scenario, but usually it's 1 to 2 months. And then the execution period is 3 to 12 months, depending on what support you're going for. If it's like setting up, usually the CorpSec firm will just take about 3 months, right? I mean, most when you're setting up, it's usually less than 3 months to help companies set up and enter the overseas. Yeah, so it's less than 3 months. But if you are going for BD hire, then it's strategic to put 12 months because you want to claim salaries for longer time. And then, of course, after the execution of the project, you prepare the claims, and the claim evaluation and reimbursement usually takes about 1 to 2 months for you to see the funds. Right. For this grant, there's no interim disbursement. It's only everything at the end, 100% of the disbursement at the end of the project. Okay, so basically claim requirements, very simple. We have to show that you hit certain BD KPIs, business development KPIs in the overseas markets. You need to show the deliverables relating to all the items and evidence of expenses. Benefits to this is that you can diversify revenue streams overseas, that's for sure. And it actually sets the foundation to further build up your team. Right? So a lot of companies, they are thinking whether they want to even have an ops team in a certain country. And they are a bit hesitant because they're not sure how much sales will they close in that country to justify building up an ops team. Right? But if with this, to get your feet long and for you to test out the market, maybe within the first year you already secure a few strategic contracts that justify you to set up an ops team. Okay, so just sharing two success cases very quickly. First success case was a regulatory tech firm. We helped them to enter the UK market by getting them this grant to exhibit at the UK trade show. And then they also incorporated a UK entity. And they also engaged business matching services. So they're quite savvy. They kind of used up all the three activities for one country. And then next they're going to China. So another set of activities. Second success case is a clinical research company. They entered the Philippine market. And we got them the grant to fund Filipino BD staff for 12 months, as well as filing of their trademarks. And yeah, interestingly, tax advisory and structuring services as well. So they engaged a local tax advisory firm to help them structure how's the best way to optimize their, or to, not tax avoidance, but how to minimize the tax payable when they expand to a new country. And this is actually very important. You don't want to be paying tax that you shouldn't be paying when you expand. Okay, yeah, so for each case, the grants secured per country was 100K and 80K respectively. Right. Any quick questions on expansion grant? I'll move on. Okay, next one, I think is my second last top grant to present. Okay, this is for automation. Okay, so this is essentially to adopt software or hardware automation solutions to improve your internal operations. Right. So what this grant, okay, eligibility criteria is about the same as the last, about 30, you need 30% local shareholding, but you don't need to be an SME. This one actually can fund large enterprises, but you need 30% local. And it needs to be customized. So if you are thinking of using this grant to buy like maybe HubSpot CRM or Xero or MYOB accounting software, this is not the grant. There's another grant that you can do it. It's under PSG, Productivity Solutions Grant. So under that, you can find a lot of pre-approved off-the-shelf solutions. This grant is kind of the big brother of that grant. So it funds solutions that are not standardized or not off-the-shelf, and the quantum can be a lot bigger. Okay, so you need to show quantifiable productivity improvements as a result of adopting this solution. And yeah, it's not meant for off-the-shelf solutions, as I mentioned. Okay, the supportable costs will include software and the relevant integrations. And when I say software, it means very customized software. Right? Like maybe those kind that other, there's no like industry standard in the market, and you need a vendor to come in, study your process, and really customize all the modules and functions. There's a good area for developing software supported with AI capabilities now, because almost anything AI you can angle it as something customized. Okay, we can also fund automation equipment, and the key thing here is that it must be automation equipment integrated into a high-tech production line. So these are for the manufacturing firms, the food processing firms, where they automate, where they may purchase robotic arms or even some meat cutting machine that's customized for them by a China system integrator. Right, and it also funds employee training, because with new technology you need to make sure your employee can use it well. And it can also fund salary of the internal project manager to see through the project with the vendors. All right, funding level 50%, no cap. Same statement as just now, depends on various factors. Process timeline is also about the same as the first grant, the product development grant. This one is considered a bit more of a complex one. Right? Claims requirement, the same, so I wouldn't repeat. For benefits, okay, it can be really game changing for your business. And why so? Let me illustrate with a few success cases. The first one, it was a leading meat distributor of 50 years in Singapore. So we got them the grant to engage a system integrator to design and implement a customized meat processing line across 3 floors of their factory. Right, so it actually consists of customized meat cutting stations, deboning station, seal tray packing stations, and everything's integrated. So you don't need people to move the meat from one station to the other, just the way that they do it manually before. Right, so everything now is fully automated. There's even AI included to auto count certain pallets, right, just by scanning the picture. And yeah, they got a grant close to 1 million at 50% support, so meaning the overall project cost was at about 2 million. And so yeah, basically they got customized equipment, conveyor systems to link up the stations, they got software, they got SIs, system integrated services funded. So this was game changing because previously they were very reliant on foreign labor to do a lot of manual processes. There were a lot of mistakes. Hygiene was not properly observed. Especially in meat processing, safety and hygiene is top priority. So by automating everything and systemizing everything, number one, they shed reliance on foreign manpower. and the low paid foreign manpower. And secondly, they can achieve higher safety standards and even higher production volumes. Okay, second case is a established water solutions engineering firm. Okay, so this firm is pretty interesting. You know the water features you see outside Marina Bay Sands? You know, there's a lot of water landmarks and features. So in the back end, right, what happens, right? You know, the piping of the water systems, the recycling of those water, no one thinks about it because everything happens in the back. So this client does exactly that. So they serve clients like MBS to take charge of their water systems behind the scenes. And what they did was that they used this grant to implement customized system which consists of Internet of Things trackers to track the status of all the water features and whether certain components need replacement or maintenance. They also implemented this software to monitor installations out of Singapore across their projects in Asia. And the grant they got was about 240K and 50% support. And they basically did this outsourced. So they outsourced the development to a third-party developer which they trust. And then there's also hardware development. So they work with China prototyping companies to prototype the IoT device. And all this cost we funded as well. Okay, yeah, so any questions on automation? Okay, I think this is my last slide on the grants. So this is to engage consultancy services. So there are grants that can fund external consultancy services fees. Right? The key thing here is that eligibility, your company needs to be 30% local. And very importantly, the consultants need to be certified. Right? So this is a way of the Singapore government saying that they won't just fund the work of any consultant, they want to fund the work of quality consultants. So the consultant that you engage, make sure they have certifications recognized by Enterprise Singapore. Second, only funds strategy work and not execution. So what this means is that the consultant can come in to do like a brand strategy for you or a business strategy development, but the scope of work cannot include execution. That means they cannot actually do logo design, they cannot do website building, all those there are other grants that can fund. But the key thing here is strategy work, which actually is the most important piece of work. Okay, so supportable cost includes development of business strategies, financial strategy, so it's almost like your outsourced CFO kind of work, where you scope it in such a way that it becomes a fixed scope instead of a monthly retainer, and there's a chance to go for this funding. It includes brand and marketing development work as well, so something the chief marketing officers kind of work. It includes process redesign of your current operations, and it includes human capital development strategy as well as service excellence strategy. So essentially, what kind of consulting work you can think of? There can be a way to fit it under this. So just speak to us or think of really ways to fit it under these buckets. Funding level up to 50% of the consultant's costs, and there's no cap depending on various things, especially industry benchmark. So this means that your consultant shouldn't be putting you a bomb to do something that other consultants can do at a fraction of the cost, because the officers will be able to see through it, and they may give a lower grant support. Okay, application timeline pretty standard, pretty similar to the other grants, so I wouldn't go into too much details. Let me just jump straight to the success cases. So we have recently helped a hotel management company. They're operating 13 hotels globally, and they have some difficulties trying to expand into China. Right? So they engaged a very specialized consultancy firm that focuses in China hospitality industry, and they have very, very interesting insights into the hotel industry in China that no one really knows of. So when we ourselves as a brand consultant, when we saw the deliverables, because we helped the client to handle everything, right? When we saw the report that the consultant did, we were very impressed as well. And the market intel that leads to the conception of the business strategy is something that really no one has seen in anywhere before. Right? So basically they engage these consultants to do market intelligence gathering, and more importantly to generate business strategies and pricing strategies, and for which particular verticals of hotels should they enter into. Right? So very, very targeted insights. The grant was about 37K $, and the whole overall project cost was about 70 plus K. That's why at 50% support, the grant is 30 plus K. Okay, so what was funded is consultancy only. Okay, success case 2 was a leading rice distributor brand of over 30 years. So what they did was that they felt that there's a need to remarket or rebrand their company. So instead of the very traditional rice brand, they now want to appeal to the younger generation. So they engaged a brand and market development consultant to come up with a social media and influencer marketing strategy. It's something very fresh. right? And same for us, when we looked at when us as the grant consultant, we looked at the consultants' report, right? It was very impressive. Like they managed to get quite a lot of influences based on their very innovative strategy to reach out to the youths, right? So what was funded was about 60K of grant at 50% support, and it funded consultancy fee as well as training fee. So training means the branding consultant train the marketing staff of the client to help them be clear of how to execute the strategy after the handover. Right. Any questions on the consultancy grant?
The consultancy grant is only for local company or overseas too? Because like if you're going into China market example, I mean the Chinese consultancy company are the one who probably knew. So when you said engage the consultancy, is that company based in Singapore or they are based overseas?
They can be based overseas.
Yeah.
But
So how do they get qualified? Because they need to be qualified, right?
Good question. Okay, so what we do here, right, is that the qualified consultant is a person, and that person does not necessarily have to be from the vendor company. So it can be a qualified consultant in Singapore, and they come under the consultancy team, working together with the China-based consultant to deliver this project.
Yeah, so that person, whoever is the bridge with, it has to be based in Singapore.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be based in Singapore, but as long as they have the certification recognized by Enterprise Singapore.
Yeah, so when Enterprise Singapore recognize this certification, the certification is based on what? On Singapore certification or?
Not really. It's based on that person sitting through tests, interviews, and rounds of evaluation to get themselves certified as a certified consultant.
Okay, so this person can be a foreigner too, based here or based overseas, but they take the test
Possible.
to be qualified. Okay.
There's actually a whole list of them on 3 different websites in the 3 different certification agencies.
Right.
How many? How many certified consultants?
As of today, I'm not very sure, but at least 200, 300. Yeah, but some of them may not already be practicing. So you gotta actually check whether they are still in this space. Right?
We have a similar system and grants in Spain, but we never request 30% local equity.
And that's for the applicant company. That one is for the applicant company.
We never request.
Yeah, on this, we were just mentioning with Gerald that we as Monx, we offer the nominee shareholder service. So of course we need to analyze the case to see that it's really worthy, to understand what the company wants to do. But there's ways, so even if right now the company doesn't have the shareholder 30%, we can work on it. Of course, case by case. It's not going to be like hundreds of cases, but this is something that we can do and we offer at Monx, because it's a very, I mean, when you go into the grants, like there are many of them that they ask this requirement, and then if you don't have it, you cannot do it. But then, I mean, we have the solution. Of course, we need to meet the company and see what are their plans, if it really makes sense. But this is a way to be able to access.
Yeah, this is the best way actually, because a lot of grants they require 30%. Okay, so my second last slide. So these are just some tips of application success. So after having gone through all the grants, you'll be thinking how do you be successful in applying? These are just some tips we have gathered. So first is you have to strategically plan your project costs and make sure not to include unqualified items. Because if let's say your overall project cost is 100K, and then 20K of the expenses are actually work that cannot be funded by the grant. So you submit this, and then the grant agency will take up the 20K, and then they will fund based on the remaining 80K. But at the same time, you're obliged to spend the full 100K to complete the project. Then you're in a very bad position, right? So I'd rather you submit 80K, right, and then get funded, and then you don't unnecessarily spend the 20K. Right? So this is just one example of why it's important to do strategic project costing before the submission. Okay, for outsourced cost, second point, right, you need to, for example, outsourced cost includes like consultants, right, engaging consultants or engaging external product development houses or engaging external software vendors. Very important for you to get competing quotes. This is something that the grant agencies will always look out for. If there are no competing quotes provided, they may then award a lower grant support than you deserve, because then they will say that they'll reference their past benchmark, which often is very low. right? So it's always good to provide company codes and show why the code you're going for is the best out of the 3 codes. Right? So the industry benchmark is to get 3 codes, and then one of them is your preferred location. Okay, third point, I think we alluded to this point before, which is you need to show the ability to fund the project. This is also very important to the grant agency. I hope there's no one in the government sitting in here, because I'm going to say something a bit sensitive, but it's actually one of their KPIs as grant approvers is that they want to approve successful cases. Meaning they approve the grant, the company finishes the project successfully and claims successfully. If a company can't show that it has the funds or the working capital to see through the project, they don't want to risk approving it. Because who knows, they approve, the company close the next day, right? And then it's a bad mark on the officer's KPI. So it's very important during the grant application to really show that you have the working capital. And we can show it through various means. Like for us, we often advise our clients, you can show through cash at bank, you can show through cash flow statements that show your ending cash balance, or you can even show investor commitment letters or even sales contracts that you have secured. So there are many ways to justify this. Right. Fourth, okay, also very important, try to shape the grant deliverables strategically. Okay, I know this is quite a foreign concept. Usually grant deliverables are determined by the grant agency, right? But no, I'm suggesting you take back control of that. Try to influence them in terms of how they state the grant deliverables. The easier it is to hit, the easier for you. Because if it's too hard to hit, then you have issues hitting it, they may decline you the claims later on. Right? So even at the grant applications process, or when you're preparing the grant proposal, already try to influence the shaping of the grant deliverables in the proposal. Okay, next one is to quantify project benefits. Yeah, this is very important. For every project, there has to be quantifiable benefits to it. Because how the officers approve the grants is that they need to see numbers. They can't just approve based on qualifiable, just statements or compliments by word. So basically, what this means is that if you're, for example, you're talking about a productivity project, you actually need to get down to looking at your processes, understanding what's the manual time spent on each process, and then with the new technology, what would be the time spent, doing the calculations and converting the time savings to a monetary value. And then you show the grant agency that, okay, for this value of savings, I'm asking for only this amount of grant. And then to them, it's like, okay, I'll just give it to you. Because if your savings is like 10 times the grant amount requested for, then it's almost a no-brainer to award the grant. Right? So yeah, this point about quantifying project benefits is quite important, especially when it comes to the more complex projects. Okay. This one, second last point, pay attention to business impact forecast. So there's this section in the business grant portal where companies often ignore, which is the part to forecast the impact of the project. Okay, this is very important because when the government approves a grant, right, they need to see what's the economic value at the project versus the cost. So what's the incremental value to your revenues, what's the incremental value to your profit and new headcount creation. Right, so all these things, there also needs to be some attention to. Okay, and lastly, for large projects, highly suggested that you socialize it with an officer first before submitting in the grant portal. Right? Because by socializing with the officer, at least you get some alignment and you get them introduced to your project. And when you submit, right, you can fast track it to say that, hey, I've spoken to this officer before, this is a grant ID, and then the officer can pick it up from there for you. Instead of submitting it and then it lands fresh into a new officer's lab, and then the officer doesn't have any context, and they may not understand your project fully versus introducing it to an officer face-to-face before. Or not face-to-face, it can be a video conference. Right? So then your next question would be, how do you get such context, right? So yeah, that would be something that we can discuss. I mean, for us, we help clients to point them to the right person. But you can also rely on free resources like SME centers in Singapore. There's this thing called SME Center where they provide free advisory on what grants to go for. And they can also help you check and review your applications. But I won't say their help is very extensive. Like you still have to write your own applications, you still have to answer the questions yourself from the validation agency, you still have to handle the claims yourself. But at the very least, they can maybe provide you some context in the grant agency. How high level those contexts are, I'm not sure, but they will be able to help. Okay, so my last slide. So basically, it's the key message here is I want to tell everyone that grants don't have to be burdensome. In fact, that's what RIC was set up to do the past 9 years, which is to relieve businesses of their burden in applying for grants. So we serve as our clients' dedicated grant department. So our mantra is like leave everything grants to our team. Right? So our clients don't have to worry anything about grants. They just enjoy the support and then just actualize their projects. That's what they are set up to do. Okay, so what we do is that we manage the full grant life cycle from application to claims, which includes strategizing the application, which includes like helping the clients link up with the right grant officers to socialize certain projects if it's a large project. And we take full ownership of the whole process, so we don't just help to review proposals or help to do online submission. We take full ownership, including building the proposals from scratch, doing the business impact forecast from scratch after understanding what the client wants. And yeah, so just some of the key points here. I will go into details, but essentially full ownership means all this. All right, and what our clients get is timely approvals, optimal funding outcomes, and a very smooth reimbursement process, and most importantly, peace of mind from the grants. And our fees are all success basis, which means if we don't get the grants, we won't charge anything. So we try to make it risk-free for the clients. One thing to note is that our fees are not supportable by the grant, so our fees have to be paid separately. We can't include our fees as part of the cost that we support the grant. Okay, so I think that brings us to the end of the presentation. Any quick questions for me, for the team at Monx?
When you say success basis, what are the chances of you getting being successful in the project application?
Yeah, so far, it depends on grants, but so far I think we average around above 90% success rate. Some grants is close to 100. Yeah, but it really depends on the grants, because some grants is more subjective.
So you're able to tell the client upfront when you evaluate the project whether it's worth or not.
Correct, exactly.
And if you do take it up, it's about 90% success.
Correct. And we need to be very careful when we take on a project, because it's risky to a client. So all the time invested in getting them to the point of offer letter, it's on our cost.
Yeah.
So great question.
Thank you.
Right. If there's no other questions, maybe I'll hand it over back to
So if no questions, we just have the coffee here, we can chat, and the talk is finished. Thank you very much.